Hi Anand, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I'm Neeraj Khanna, and I'm here to help you in whatever way I can. We can talk about anything, your career, your college, your life, anything that you think I can help you with.
I just finished my undergraduate studies, and I did my undergraduate studies from BITS Pilani, Hyderabad campus.
Hmm.
I have an integrated MSc plus BSc Physics degree over there,
Hmm.
and I graduated with the CGPA of 7.77 or 7.8. I have to check that part exactly. So aside from this, my 12th marks were like 93%, and my 10th marks were 9.4 CGPA or something like that. And I wanted to, so I right after college, I did my internships in investment banking, and I'm trying to get into a master's in financial engineering or computational finance, or just a master's in finance too. So I wanted to know what my prospects were for this. So my biggest worry is that everyone I've spoken to who's done a master's in financial engineering generally said that the one thing they care about are really good stats grades, and my stats grades were quite bad in college because of COVID and all that. So that's the main thing I wanted to know. I wanted to know what would be my what would be universities that I could like get. What are good programs if you know any, and how I'd start with my application process.
Okay. So I'll need to know a little more about you. So Anand, where do you stay? Where are you based?
I'm based in Chennai right now.
Okay. And you did your schooling in Chennai
Yeah, schooling in Chennai.
and then went to BITS.
Ah,
Okay. So till 12th in Chennai, then 4 years in Hyderabad,
yeah,
and then back to Chennai.
yeah.
And you graduated when?
Uh, I'll be receiving my degree next week, so I graduated like a month back.
Okay, this year,
Yeah.
23. So 2019 is when you finished school.
Ah. No, so I finished school in 2018. I
Okay.
did a year in Manipal, but then I wrote BitSat again, and I ended up getting bits, so I just moved.
Okay. All right. That's fine. Doesn't make much difference. So high school, you had sciences clearly,
Ah.
and you came to BITS. What else have you done in the last 4 5 years apart
Uh,
from going to college?
Yeah, so I've done three internships. One was in software development, which isn't very relevant to this. One, I did an investment banking internship in a small firm in Bangalore where I did brand valuations and equity valuations work. And for the last 7 months, I worked in Credit Suisse in their equity research department. So
That's okay. 7 months.
no, wait. Jan till June. So six actually. Yeah, I worked in the front office equity research department for Credit Suisse. And aside from that, in 12th grade, there was a model event competition through my school where we went to the US and did some tuning over there. And we even got to do a session in the United States, in the United Nations building in New York. So, yeah, I think,
Mhm.
yeah, I think those
Okay.
are like the most relevant things I've done in the last 5 years.
Okay. And what do you want to do as a career?
Uh, Ideally, I want to get back into equity research or anything in investment banking, but the main goal is to do equity research.
Okay. And where do you want to do that?
Uh, I wanted, so the thing is, I'm open to moving anywhere and working. So the main thing is I do want to try working in Europe and US. But yeah, that's the main thing.
Okay. Um, and so there are two ways to do that. So let me set some um, details right first. That so when you started your questions were about what course can I do, right? Where can I study? What course can I do? Okay, I've got 7.7 GPA. I came out of BITS Hyderabad. I got so much in 12th, so much in 10th, and all that. And I'm taking a little. I'm taking a little further, right? I'm saying whatever course you do, right? You did 12th because you wanted to get into college. Now you've done your college, now you want to get into another college. Now all this has to land up somewhere, and I'm trying to find out where do you want to land up. So then you can work backwards,
Yeah. Okay.
right? Because a lot of times education becomes a false hope, right? Sometimes we start thinking that now that I'm in BITS Hyderabad, now life is sorted. So what you thought when you were entering BITS Hyderabad is different from what you think about it today.
Yeah.
Right? And that's fine. That's normal. And that's so because we know only so much about it and we start connecting the wrong dots.
Okay.
Right? So a lot of times mostly it's useful to see what is the end goal that you're looking for. Right? Where do you, by end goal, I don't mean where do you want to be at 50. We can talk about that also. But what kind of a career are you looking for? Where do you want to have that career? And then if you want to have that career in the Wall Street in New York and the US, then looking at a college in Malaysia or looking at a college in some other country is not, you can
Viable.
stand
Yeah.
up there, but then might as well straight away hit for the US.
Uh-huh.
Right? But if you say I want to look at Germany or I want to look at UK, then let's look at UK. So in my mind, it seems like you want to be in that equity space, right? Today you're saying equity research, tomorrow it could be something else, but largely it's that equity space. That's one thing I've understood. The second thing I've understood is that you want to be in the developed world, right? So US or Europe, basically, when we say anywhere, it of course doesn't mean you're okay to be in Bangladesh.
Yeah.
You prefer to be in a developed nation.
Huh.
You are okay to be in India till you can move there, but finally you want to move to a developed country. Okay. Now, between US and Europe, any preferences?
Yeah, a higher preference to US. I do want to try working in Wall Street. Like that is one of my biggest goals.
Sure. And so where is Europe coming from? Is it a plan B or is it somebody's told you it's easier or?
No, I just want to experience living in all different countries too. So if it's more like in US would be my first choice, but I do want to try moving to Europe as well, and if possible, studying there too. But first choice would always be, if possible, something close to New York.
Okay. So let's talk about that career for 2 minutes.
Yes.
Right. The career that you're looking for is a very high intensity, highly competitive career where the top firms hire the B school grads from the best of the best. Um, I have to be honest that it is not necessary that you need to be a 9+ GPA to be a great investment banker or great equity guy. You could, I mean, I've seen people who were lower than you GPA and turned out to be great investment banking professionals.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, the yardstick of intellect or capability when you're a student becomes very unfairly focused on your grades, right? So you don't have a bad GPA. I'm not trying to ridicule your GPA, but if you are trying to compare yourself to somebody who's come out of Stern or Ross or HBS or
Yeah, I do know that.
and who's got a top GPA, now you are in a fix.
Yeah.
Right? So now it becomes slightly challenging. Now, and hence it's important to understand where are you trying to get to, right? So considering where you are right now, you've done your schooling reasonably well, you've done your college reasonably well, but these kind of companies or these kind of places are looking for people who are not just reasonably well.
Yeah, the best. Yeah.
Right? The best of the best. Hence, whenever you're looking for this college, wherever you're looking for this college,
Aim should be to be the top of the pack there. Right?
ideally, yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
Ideally, yeah, because
No, yeah, I saw the same culture even when I was working Credit Suisse because so I went through my college's internship program, but the main reason I couldn't get converted was one, the company was kind of going under them, and two, equity research itself, they said you need to have a relevant postgraduate degree. So they chose us because we had like good finance grades. But the main thing is, in our college, they can only take people with master's degrees because it's a research role and India requires that. But when it comes to full-time conversion, they said you need to have an MBA from either IMA or P. So even in Mumbai, their standards were ridiculously high. So like everyone else in my office were like 9 point CGPA guys from IIT who went to IIM, and like there was like a big inferiority complex when I was working there only because like anytime someone asked me to introduce myself, the first thing they would say is "Kaunsa IIT or Kaunsa IIM," and I'd have to say "Pits." So yeah, I saw the culture there too.
Yeah. So it is a tricky game. Now, having said that, you shouldn't. You should be. We should all be very self-aware. We should know where we stand. So we should not live in a fool's paradise. So you should be self-aware that the GPA is not great, but you should not. We should never play on the back foot, right? We should create a positioning that we can be aggressive and fearless about what we are trying to achieve. So can you be in the investment banking space? Absolutely, you can be. Nothing is stopping you from getting into that space. But you need to be self-aware that it's going to be extremely competitive. You're going to compete with people with the top GPAs
Much better profiles
from the top colleges, and then people are losing out. You know, the IMA, IMB, HBS, Stern, those guys are losing out, and then you're trying to compete. So there are two ways to compete, right? When you're at this age and stage of life. One is based on your academic strength. And the second is based on your other strengths, right? Your networking, your extracurriculars, your internships, your entrepreneurial ventures, whatever else you've done. Now, if you have both, that's ideal.
Yeah.
Short entry into the top investment banking firm. But if you can have only one, then do well in that one. Right? If you're purely academic, then get a top GPA. If you're not so academic, then do really well in the other areas. So academics is not the top. So how's the other areas for you? Do you think you've got something? So you mentioned some internships. Do you think there is something in that basket which makes you stand out and helps you compete with the HBS guy? How was the experience in the internship?
I really loved it. That's kind of why I want to get back into it.
How many hours did you work?
I think from Jan till May, I was working around 14 to 15 hours a day.
In the office or work from home?
A bit of both. So my day started at 7 a.m. because it was an equity role. We had to work an hour before markets open. We had to be awake and doing stuff. So I worked from 7 to 9:30 at home, and then I took the train to office around 9:30. I'd reach office by like 10:30. I'd stay in office till 5, reach home by 6, and then be online till 10ish working again. So it wouldn't be continuous work, but the whole point was I had to be present at all those periods and available in case anyone needed. Some days it would be 14 hours straight, and some days it would be less, but I'd be online, I'd be logged in for 14 to 15 days.
And you'd work 5 days or 6 days or 7 days?
5 days a week, occasionally 6, but never 7.
And what's your perception of how would this world look like when you're a full-time employee?
A full-time employee, I think my work hours, those same, I think I'd be working for the same hours, but it wouldn't be as many breaks as I got because my job was to support people. So I worked for the VP. And because I'm helping with his companies, it's a different thing from being assigned my own sector and company and working on those myself.
Yeah.
And also, like on days when we had result season and stuff, my hours were pretty bad. But people like my boss were expected to stay awake until the note went out and stuff. So those days worked from 14, 15 to even 20 hours a day. So those are my expectations. And honestly, because I was enjoying it so much, I was fine with that idea back then. Like it was the best experience I've had in terms of work. Everyone was really smart, and I felt like I was learning a lot every single day just being in the office. It was very inspiring to be there.
So also important to recognize that this is not just a competitive space, it's a dog-eat-dog space. It's a very long hours. Your work is your life space. And especially in the US. Yeah. So especially in the US, it's very long hours. It's pretty much your life to be in the office or work for the company. I'm just trying to make sure that you understand what you are trying to step into. Firstly, getting into it is not going to be easy for you.
And after all the slogging to get in, it'll still be a slog to be there.
It shouldn't happen that you burn your midnight,
Burnout.
you like work super hard, and then you get in, and then you say, "Oh my God, what have I got myself into?" Right? So, how much of that are you aware of?
I'm aware of it. So in Bombay, I lived with investment bankers too. So like everyone around me was in the same culture. So at least for those 6 months, I could see how everyone else was like feeling and all that. And yeah, it does look bad. That's the one part I'm a little afraid of. But in general, the thing I liked is everyone around me were from very similar backgrounds, and in general, they were just people. How do you say it? They were just people that I could immediately connect with, and
Right.
yeah. So and the work itself was quite fun. Like generally speaking, it didn't feel like I was moving too far away from science because it was mostly just math that I was doing, and that's what I liked the most about it.
Right. Right. Okay. And what's the situation with your current employment? What are you
So
planning to do right now?
I'm currently writing my CFA level 1.
Okay.
So my plan is to finish level 1 and 2 before I go for masters. So I'm probably just going to sit at home, finish level 1, apply for some internships, and work part time while I do level 2 because I know for a fact that if I get a job, I will not complete my CFA.
And why would you do masters and not an MBA?
Because I believe, at least outside India, MBA requires a lot more work experience. And in masters, I just find the coursework a lot more interesting than I do in MBA, especially when it came to financial engineering, because a lot of coursework was portfolio management and asset valuations. And yeah, ideally, it's the equity space I want to get into, but anything related to asset management and asset valuations sounds very interesting to me.
How do you plan to fund your masters?
I'm decently well off. I think I can fund it by myself. Like my parents can do it for me.
Okay. So your parents will fund it.
Yeah.
Okay. At the end of, so do you know how the visa situation works in the US?
No, I don't.
So when you go in to study in the US, as long as you do a full-time undergrad or masters, at the end of your masters or undergrad,
You get 2 years, I think.
you get an extension to your visa, which is called an OPT extension. If your course was a non-STEM course, it's a 1-year extension. If it's a STEM course, it's a 3-year extension. In that 1 year or 3 years, you need to get your
Get a
H1.
job and a sponsorship, right? A
So
visa sponsorship.
yeah, that OTP is valid only if you have a job.
Huh.
If you don't have a job, there is a unemployment period of a month every year or something which you're allowed. But if you don't have a job at the end of it, you need to come back or get into another course. So one option is that you do one master's and then get into your OPT period. You work in that period. At the end of it, if you don't get an H1B, then move into another master's or whatever. The conversion from OPT to H1B is a lottery system, right? So nobody can guarantee you that wherever you work. So there are people who go to very good colleges, have gone to Harvard, MIT, whatever, and then got their OPT, but during the OPT could not get an H1B and had to come back to India and then reapplied somewhere else. So that's one thing you should be aware of. In sort of in comparison, if you look at Canada, irrespective of what course you study, you get a 3-year work permit. And in those 3 years, it's reasonably well processed, well structured to get
right?
And then you can move to a citizenship. So,
yeah, my sister did this. She's a Canadian citizen now already.
Okay, so then, I mean, she can tell you more about it.
Yeah. The Canadian process I'm quite familiar with. It's US and Europe, I don't know much about.
Yeah, so I'm saying since your keenness is to move to the developed country and at some stage to the US, whenever you apply, my advice would be apply to the US and apply to Canada, and then see where do you get a better college, right? Where will you get a better experience? So I've seen tons and tons of students who have done their undergrad in the US got their OPT in the US, could not get an H1B, and then moved to Canada for masters, and did their masters in the US, got their citizenship of, in Canada, did the masters in Canada, got the Canadian citizenship, and then moved back to the US. Because then you have a Canadian passport, and you won't need to fall back into India at any stage, right? Which is the fear that a lot of people have. So that's one word of advice. The second thing is that while you want to do your master's instead of an MBA because you believe you like the program, two, you think MBA will require experience and masters will not, and you're right. You're absolutely right. There's no doubt about that. But any kind of master's program, whether it's an MS or an MBA, is a lot more worthwhile with work experience. See, again, think about where do you want these dots to connect in the end. Your master's is not your end goal. Your end goal is to come out of that college and then get a good job, right? Then you want to get into Morgan Stanley or wherever you want to go, right? So that's your goal. So do things which will equip you for that. And when you go to any kind of master's program in the US or Canada or Western country, developed world, you will realize that you have a 35-year-old sitting next to you in the class. So the average age will be far higher than your age.
Yeah.
Now, when Citibank comes to your campus or any company comes to your campus to hire, they have a 35-year-old guy with 12 years work ex. And they have a 25-year-old guy with no work ex. Right? Finally, what companies want is somebody who will get the work done.
Yeah.
Right? So you will find it easier to get good employment, good work experience if you have worked before you go to the country which you are not a citizen of. So that's the second thing I will leave with you. The third is that if you do decide to get work experience, then I would say consider the MBA also seriously. Largely because the difference is that the MBA is a lot more generic degree.
Yeah.
It is largely giving you general gyan about the corporate world, about the business world. And then you're specializing in finance, you're specializing in marketing, whatever you're doing. In your case, I'm assuming you'll specialize in finance. Right? So because you're still so young, when I speak to people of your age, I worry if 5 years from now you will want to do something different, but you are putting yourself in a niche where the exit route will become tough. Right? So that's the third advice I would give you, that if you do decide to get some work experience, then an MBA will work very well for you, because as I see it, and don't take me wrong, if I say, Anand, you're a great guy, go, life is hunky-dory, Harvard will take you, I'm not being sincere to you, right? So as I see it, you're not a super academic guy. You are better at work than academics. You enjoyed that internship that a lot of people hate, let me tell you. Because it's not an easy internship. To start at 7 and finish at 11 in the night, people hate it. You liked it. You quite loved it, as you say. So what the sense I get is that you are much better at work than you are at academics, right? Now, you are purely basing your admission on your academics right now, right? Because you haven't got 2 years or 3 years or 5 years of work experience. You've got some internships, which is good, but you don't have a lot of work experience. So largely what they're going to look at is your academics and maybe a GRE GMAT score, right? But if you were to work for a few years, do some interesting work, your 7.7 will hurt you less. I think apply to US and Canada. I would say Europe is, so one thing about between North America or Americas and Europe, when you're starting off in your career, Americas is better. In Americas, people live to work. In Europe, people work to live. Right? So in London, when the sun is out, people don't go to office, they go to Hyde Park. Don't care how much work they have. Whereas in the US, if you're in New York, peak office hours are 6:30 to 7:30. Right? 9 o'clock, roads are empty because people are in their office. So Annual leave, public holidays in the US are 8 to 10. Europe, people take a month, right? And and it gives better work-life balance, but you're too young for that work-life balance. For the industry you want to get into. That's a cutthroat industry. If you want that work-life balance, don't get into this.
Yeah, exactly.
Or get into this for the first 10 years, then move on. But the first 10 years, make your name, make your money, make your fame.
And work like the rest of the people, basically.
Work like a dog, and that's the wrong way to say. No, work very hard and then get out.
Yeah.
You will realize that a lot of people who get into investment banking immediately after undergrad or masters do that for 2 years. And then they leave that investment banking analyst role, they come into something else. Right? So you will see tons and tons and tons of people who spend 2 to 3 years in investment banking. So that's how tough it is. So I would say keep Europe as priority 3, make it US and Canada, and then Europe. And within US and Canada, of course, you'll have to, it's wrong for me to say apply to this college, don't apply to this college. I'll have to do a lot more in-depth understanding about you, your grades, your profile, your extracurriculars, your aptitude, your various things, your GRE score and all that. But you will get a college. There's no doubt about that. So don't be insecure about anything. The 7.7 or 94% in 10th or 12th or whatever it is, you're a decent profile, you will get a college. Now, will you get a top college in the US or U Toronto in Canada? I don't know, right? I can't say that. But you will get a college.
Yeah.
Knowing that, don't underplay. When you put together a college list, apply to some safeties, which are not the best colleges, but also apply to some top colleges.
So yeah, I wanted to know how do I come up with the list, right?
So look at US News, look at niche.com, NICHE, I think. Niche.com.
Okay.
Between these two, actually, US News is a good resource. Between these two, you will get enough options. Now, how to select is put together your criteria. Does weather make a difference to you? Does location make a difference to you? If you want to be in the sector that you want to be, East Coast is a better option for you than the West Coast.
Yeah.
So look at the New York, Boston area, and there are enough options there. So look at largely the East Coast, I would say. You can look at Chicago, which is not East Coast, but apart from East Coast, I would say look at Chicago in terms of location. But both these places have harsh weather.
Weather, I'm fine with anything.
Be careful about that. The other thing you need to look at on these websites is the entry requirements. Right, so they will tell you what scores are required, what acceptance rates are. You can go into the website of each college through these. They will give you the ranking of colleges and put together a balanced list. I would say make a list of 20 colleges to begin with. Okay, maybe even 25. Bring it down to 15. And then apply to a minimum of 8, maximum of 12.
Okay.
Because it's a lot of work.
Fair.
So make a good quality application. A good quality application is more important than the number of applications. Okay, you will need to reach out to your professors. You will need some letters of recommendation. You will need statements of purpose. You will need your GRE, GMAT scores. You will need an online presence, right? So do something where you can. So till about a decade ago, when you applied to colleges, you could send a bunch of copies of certificates and those kind of things to them. Now you can't send anything. So now in today's environment, they will just Google Anand, Gour, Chintaluri. Did I say your name right?
Yeah.
Okay. So they will Google your name and see what pops up. right? So it could be a blog where you've written so much about finance. It could be a newspaper article about you. It could be a venture that you started. It could be how you're teaching some high school kids about investment banking. It could be whatever it is, right? So they will. Great colleges are looking for people who don't need great colleges, right? So how do you become that guy where HBS looks at you and says, Anand is going to do well anyways, whether he comes to us or not, then they want you.
So I wanted to know how I find out which universities would be ambitious, which would be achievable, things like that too.
So, when you go on these websites that I've given you, they have a free model and they have a paid model. So on US News, for example, you can pay for, they have, I think, something called the Compass. It's their paid model. And it's not super expensive. So I would say sign up for that, take that subscription. It will give you the next level of detail. It will tell you what kind of scores are required, which it will hide when you are not a paid customer, right? Or the other option is go on the colleges' websites. Use US News to identify your 25 colleges. Now go on those colleges' websites and engage, write to them. So another fact, colleges love it when prospective students are engaged with them.
Okay.
When prospective students are going back and forth writing, right? So if you can do that, that will work very well for you. If you say, hey, NYU, you are my dream school. I have some questions, blah, blah, blah. What do you think about it? Is there somebody who can help me with these answers? Make sure those questions are not already answered in their website. So on many websites, they'll be very informative. You'll get a lot of information, and some you won't. But it's a great thing to use this as an opportunity to write to them. And you could say, this is my background. Do you think I should apply? What are my chances? And they'll come back to you. You'll be surprised. They've got people dedicated in their admissions team who'll do this. Right. The other is attend their seminars. They will come to India and conduct seminars. I'm sure they happen in Chennai. I know they happen in Bangalore, Delhi, Bombay. My guess is they also happen in Chennai. So also write to them and say, are you guys visiting India? I'd love to meet and understand more about what the college has to offer. Right.
Yeah.
So look at there are two elements that you will find on the websites are GPA and GRE or GMAT. You will find GRE and GMAT a lot more easily available than GPA, mostly because your GPA is not equivalent to their GPA.
Yeah, I heard that at least from what I've checked in most of these colleges, they want like a 3 out of 4, like a 3 out of 4 in their 3-point score, right? I mean, their 4-point score. And I did use like a GPA converter, and I saw that mine was around 3.1, 3.2. So I beat that like threshold, but it's nothing great, like you said.
Yeah. So you will have to use WES.
Yeah.
Have you used WES?
I think so. So my friend had WES.
Yeah.
And I went on his account and tried once, essentially.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but when you apply, you will have to subscribe to pay WES to do a conversion, and WES will send your score to the college.
Yeah.
The moment you start your college application journey for the US or Canada or Europe, you start paying money for everything.
I know.
Okay, so that, I mean, you seem okay with. So I would say sign up with WES. They will ask for all your transcripts and things that you don't have right now. You'll have to collect some paperwork. You'll have to go back to BITS for it.
No, I'm getting all that paperwork next week. I'm going for my convocation.
So BITS will have to send it to WES.
Okay.
So you will have to, and they will know what to do. So you sign up with them. They'll say, okay, ask them to send it to us. They will either upload, or they will make a package. They will charge you for it. They will courier it to the US, to WES. WES will take 2, 3, 4 weeks, convert that, tell you what your GPA is, and then you tell WES where all you want to send it, and they'll send it.
Okay.
So use that to find out what your GPA is. But that's why your GPA, as it is today, is not going to be beneficial for you to identify colleges, because you need to get the conversion done. You just need to remember you are at the mediocre level. You're not at the top in your GPA. But your GRE will help you identify that, and you don't have your GRE score yet. You will have to take a mock GRE to figure out what kind of scores you might hit.
Okay.
All right, Anand, it was a pleasure to speak with you. And you seem like a really smart guy, I'll be honest. You have it in you what it takes to be successful. I'm just worried that you are in a rush and you will undersell yourself. And a lot of times, students going from India do that because they're in a rush to go. And there is no perfect way to do these things. So I'll leave that at your desk, how you want to deal with that. My advice will be spend 2-3 years, gain some work experience. Trust me, give it all you've got, you will get the job. Get a job, get in, then move your way up. Any kind of finance space, go in there, start working, get some work experience under your belt, do some interesting path-breaking work, then do a GRE GMAT, then go for your master's. I would say MBA, but you decide. And go to the US or Canada.
Yeah.